The Bay City Rollers were a Scottish pop band whose popularity was highest in the 1970s. The British hit singles and albums noted that they were tartan teen sensations from Edinburgh, and were the first of many acts heralded as the biggest group since the Beatles and one of the most screamed at teeny-bopper acts of the 1970s. For a relatively brief but fervent period, they were worldwide teen idols. The group's lineup featured numerous changes over the years, but the classic lineup during its heyday included guitarists Eric Faulkner and Stuart Wood, singer Les McKeown, bassist Alan Longmuir, and drummer Derek Longmuir. History, early days and formation, 1966 Euro 73, in 1966, bassist Alan Longmuir, his younger brother, drummer Derek Longmuir, and their schoolfriend, lead singer Gordon "Nobby" Clark, founded the Saxons in Edinburgh, Scotland. Soon after, they changed to the Bay City Rollers by throwing a dart at a map of the United States, landing near Bay City, Michigan. The Bay City Rollers' first manager was Tam Patton, himself a former big band leader. Short-term members from this period included bassist David Patton and keyboardist Billy Lyall, who went on to be founding members of another successful Edinburgh band, Pilot. After signing with Bell Records, the band's first hit was Keep On Dancing, a cover of a 1965 hit by the Gentrys, recorded at the suggestion of record producer Jonathan King. Clark was backed on vocals on Keep On Dancing by King doing multi-track singing. Upon this release's success, they made appearances on BBC One's Top of the Pops. The group then won a Radio Luxembourg-sponsored song contest with the tune More Plus or Minus Una, which was later popular in parts of Europe and in Israel. Several non-charting singles were released over the following 2 years. This period saw the addition of long-term member guitarist Eric Faulkner. In mid-1973 they narrowly missed the UK singles chart with the fourth single, Saturday Night, one of many songs written and produced for the band by the songwriting duo of Scotsman Bill Martin and Irishman Phil Coulter. By the end of 1973, Clark had become disillusioned with the band's musical direction and decided to leave just when his recording of Remember zoomed up the charts to number 6. He was replaced as lead singer by Les McKeown. A couple of months later, in early 1974, what became known as the classic lineup was completed when guitarist John Devine was replaced by Stuart "Woody" Wood. British breakthrough, 1974 Euro 75. In late 1973 McKeown recorded lead vocals on Remember, and a lead into a series of UK chart hits. A young 16-year-old Stuart Wood completed the classic 5 lineup in late 1974, and by 1975 the band were well on their way to achieving global success likened to Beatles fame. The successful classic 5 lineup consisted of Alan Longmuir, Derek Longmuir, Stuart "Woody" Wood, Eric Faulkner and Les McKeown. Beginning with Remember, the Rollers' popularity exploded, and they released a string of hits on the UK chart. Following in succession were Shang-a-Lang, Summer Love Sensation, and All of Me Loves All of You. By early 1975, they were one of the highest-selling acts in the UK. That year saw a successful UK tour, and a 20-week UK television series, Shang-a-Lang. A cover of the Four Seasons by Baby stayed at No. 1 in the UK for 6 weeks in the spring of 1975, selling nearly 1 million copies to become the biggest seller of the year, and the subsequent single Give a Little Love topped the charts that summer, their second No. 1 hit. 2 full-length LPs were produced during this period, Once Upon a Star and Wouldn't You Like It? Faulkner and Wood undertook the majority of the songwriting duties. At the peak of their popularity in the UK, comparisons were made to the Beatles. Also by this time, Bay City Roller fans had a completely distinctive style of dress, the main elements of which were calf-length tartan trousers and tartan scarves. English singer-songwriter Nick Lowe wrote a jaundiced paean to the band entitled Bay City Rollers We Love You. The track was carefully sculpted to be poor enough to get Lowe out of a recording contract with United Artists, but the strategy backfired. UA issued the record as By the Tartan Horde, which was the name given to Rollers fans in England, and it became a substantial hit in Japan. Lowe was obliged to record a follow-up song called Rollers Show, which did not meet with the same commercial success. This follow-up song was included on the US release of Low's first album, Pure Pop for Now People. World impact, 1976. As the group's popularity swelled to superstardom in the UK, a concerted effort was made by Arista Records to launch the Rollers in North America. New Arista head Clive Davis was instrumental in grooming and overseeing the project. His work paid off, as in late 1975, the Rollers reached No. 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 with Saturday Night, the song that had missed the UK chart completely 2 years earlier. The Rollers gave the track their American debut via a satellite-link performance on Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. In Canada, it fared equally well, hitting No. 1 on the RPM National Singles Chart on January 10, 1976. The Bay City Rollers album hit No. 1 in the same chart on February 7. A second North American hit came with Money Honey, written by Faulkner, which hit No. 9 in the US. In Canada, it fared better, following its predecessor to the top and giving them their second No. 1 in the RPM National Singles Chart on March 13, 1976. The North America-Japan release album Rock 'n' Roll Love Letter jumped from No. 25 to the top position in a single week in Canada, deposing their own Bay City Rollers album at No. 1 on the national chart on March 27, 1976, but only managed to achieve the No. 31 spot on the US Billboard chart. They were also extremely popular in Australia. One great example of their popularity was put into the book about Countdown, the Australian TV music show that ran from 1974 to 1987. Their 1976 appearance on Countdown coincided with a total eclipse of the sun. Director Ted Emery recalls, "There were thousands of kids done up in tartan pants that didn't reach the top of their shoes, constantly bashing on the plexiglass doors. They would do anything to get into the television studio. There's 200 kids bashing on the door and a total eclipse of the sun occurred. I'd never seen one. On this day we all stopped in the studio and the Rollers went up on the roof. We stood out there and watched the flowers close up and all the automatic street lighting come on. It was chilling, the most fantastic thing you'd ever see. Downstairs the kids never turned around, staring into the plexiglass waiting to see the Rollers come out of the studio, go down the corridor and into the canteen. Never noticed the total eclipse of the sun." By early 1976, the strain of success had taken its toll on bassist Alan Longmuir, who decided to leave the group. He was replaced for 7 months by 17-year-old Ian Mitchell, the first band member born outside Edinburgh, Scotland. With Mitchell, the group released an album titled Dedication, and hit the charts with a cover version of the Dusty Springfield song I Only Want to Be With You, which reached US No. 12, as well as Yesterday's Hero, and Dedication. 1977 79, as the Rollers' popularity waned, the shuffling of personnel continued. Mitchell quit the band. He was replaced by guitarist Pat McGlynn, who joined the band with the forlorn wish that I just hope I can cope. McGlynn lasted only a few months before quitting in turn, complaining that the other Rollers had treated him like a servant. Further struggles around the band involved the direction of their sound, as the members wished to pursue more sophisticated styles. They settled on David Bowie's producer, Harry Marslin, and in August 1977 released It's a Game as a 4-piece group, comprising McKeown, Wood, Faulkner and Derek Longmuir. The It's a Game tour produced the live album Roller World, Live at the Budokan 1977, recorded in 1977 at Japan's Budokan Hall, but unreleased until 2001. On the disc, they covered an unsuccessful 1973 single by String Driven Thing, It's a Game, to give them their final UK Top 20 hit. Oddly enough, this single provided them with their highest charting German hit, reaching No. 4 in the same year. The follow-up You Made Me Believe in Magic could only make No. 34 in July in the UK and No. 10 in the US, but this would be their final major success there too. In 1978, Alan Longmuir reunited with the band for the recording of Strangers in the Wind. The release of this LP was timed to coincide with the debut of the Rollers' US Saturday morning television show The Crofts Superstar Hour, later renamed the Bay City Rollers Show, on the NBC network. the show was a poor match for the band. Their time in the teen idol spotlight was slipping away and their music had matured and become more sophisticated compared to the bubblegum hits they had released in 1975 or 1976. New singer, new name. At the end of 1978, the band had split with McKeown, then fired manager Tam Patton shortly after, and decided to continue in a more new wave, rock-oriented sound. Their name was now the Rollers. South African-born Duncan Farr joined the band as new lead vocalist, guitarist and songwriter. With Farr, the lineup produced 3 albums, Elevator, Vogues, and Ricochet. Following the expiry of the band's Arista contract, neither of the releases sold as well as expected and they stopped touring by late 1981. However, the rise in Internet use since the 90s has seen these albums become accessible. 1980s and beyond. During the 1980s and 1990s, there were a few short tours. 7 past members played Japan in 1982, and again in 1983. A reunion album, Breakout, was released in Japan and Australia in 1985, and added drummer George Spencer. Breakout was written primarily by McKeown and McGlynn with minor contributions from Faulkner, Wood, and Mitchell. In the late 1980s a version of the band called the New Rollers was formed featuring Faulkner on lead vocals, Cass on vocals, Jason Medvec on guitar, Andy Boakes on bass, Mark Roberts on drums. The band toured extensively throughout the US and Canada as well as tours of the UK and Australia. This group also released an independent 5-song EP titled Party Hardy. In 1990 Stuart Wood and Alan Longmuir joined with Faulkner to tour under the Bay City Rollers name, and issued several CDs of re-recordings of the old roller tunes. The classic lineup were filmed for an episode of the VH1 Euro Behind the Music series in 1998. Around the same time the same lineup played in Japan for a TV show. The classic lineup performed a one-off New Year's Eve Millennium concert, the last official Bay City Rollers concert in the shadow of Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. Interest was rekindled in the UK by various television documentaries about the group, and a new television advertised compilation of greatest hits, Very Best of the Bay City Rollers, which entered the UK albums chart on release in 2004 at No. 11. On April 26, 2008, fans in the greater Los Angeles area celebrated the first Bay City Rollers Day. A day celebrating all things BCR via music, games, and attempting to live the Bay City Roller lifestyle. The tradition has continued and grown in popularity with each passing year. Financial disputes. According to the BBC they sold 70 million records. In March 2007, 6 former members of the group announced a lawsuit against Arista Records in hopes of claiming what they describe as tens of millions of dollars of unpaid royalties. Nobby Clark has threatened to sue the other band members if their lawsuit is successful, stating that he was the creative force behind the band's success, despite the fact that he left the group in 1973 before the bulk of their fame and fortune began. In September 2010, Gordon "Nobby" Clark, Ian Mitchell and Pat McGlynn filed a complaint in the courts in United States against the 6 members over their being excluded from the case against Arista Records. Clark, Mitchell and McGlynn were seeking to have their rights determined and are also seeking financial damages against the other Bay City Rollers for alleged breach of contract. In 2013 a judge in the United States Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against the 3 due to the statute of frauds, which establishes that certain agreements must be in writing under certain conditions, with the appellate judge ruling, a claim for unjust enrichment must be based on the value of plaintiff's contribution to the joint effort of the band at the time it made the relevant records, not on the income stream resulting from a revival over 30 years later. In March 2011 a New York judge determined that the Bay City Rollers can move forward with their 4-year-old lawsuit against Arista Records. Arista had denied responsibility for the majority of the royalties, claiming that the New York statute of limitations, which limits plaintiffs from recovering damages past 6 years in contract disputes, bars the Rollers' claims for royalties incurred prior to 2001. However, since the Rollers were able to show that Arista had continued to promise them their royalties in writing, the judge ruled that the statute was not applicable. Discography, albums, studio albums, compilation albums, live albums, singles, based on German radio airplay reports, references,